Welcome to Weingut Gindorf, and welcome to the virtual tasting of the 2018 Riesling feinherb. Now, we've talked a lot about Riesling, but what we haven't talked about is the concept of feinherb, and that is a term that's even confusing to many lovers of German wine, also because it's not listed anywhere in the German wine law. European wine law foresees dry wines, half-dry wines, sweet and very sweet wines, but the term feinherb appears nowhere. Now, it's thanks to Mosel winemakers that this somewhat antiquated term continues to exist. It reminds us of a time at the beginning of the 20th century when many Mosel white wines simply stopped fermenting in the cellar because the cellars got too cold. The result was a wine that, in terms of residual sugar, is about on par with today's half-dry wines, maybe a little bit sweeter, but had a very fruity characteristic. And that's exactly what happened to this 2018 Riesling. The fermentation spontaneously stopped in the cellar, and we were impressed by the fruity, half-dry quality of the resulting Riesling wine. We finished it off in the cellar and decided, rather than calling it the standard half-dry, we would use the more traditional term of feinherb. And that's why this wine comes to us as the 2018 Riesling feinherb. Now we can go into the cellar and see exactly what the process for white wine making is. We've said that it's our philosophy at Weingut Gindorf to combine the best of tradition and innovation. Now, about 2/3 of our vineyards are traditionally harvested by hand. They're very steep, and that process allows us to do a great job of quality control in the vineyard, only taking those grapes that we want to end up in the finished wine. But about 1/3 of our vineyards are harvested by machine. A machine can harvest a vineyard in about 20 minutes, where it would normally take 2 people the better part of 2 days to do a hand harvest. So winning those efficiencies is important. However, it means that we have to build in an extra quality control step. So on the evening before or the morning of a machine harvest, we go through those vineyards row by row and drop by hand all of the fruit that's unhealthy or that we don't want in that wine. And putting that fruit on the ground ensures that the machine harvester will only take the healthy fruit that we want, so that we can live up to our motto that a great wine is made in the vineyard and the process in the cellar should be as minimalistic as possible. Building in that quality step ensures that we can put the best quality product in the market for a price that's still very reasonable. Now we can go into the cellar and see how we actually make the white wine using technology a bit more modern than this. We talked about the red wine process being significantly influenced by the contact between grape skins and grape juice. Now, in the white wine making process, there's almost no contact between skin and juice. In fact, white wine grapes go directly from the wagon in which we collect them in the vineyard into the press within a matter of hours. Now, in the press, those grapes are pressed and the juice pressed off, and then it goes directly into a stainless steel tank to begin the fermentation process. Now, why do we use stainless steel for white wine? Well, what we're going for is really the true expression of that fruit in that parcel in that year. And stainless steel neither adds nor subtracts any aromas or flavors of its own, unlike wood. And stainless steel also gives us the ability to keep a very close eye on these fermentations. In fact, we come through the cellar every day and track the temperature, residual sugar, and other key indicators of that fermentation on a daily basis. We also taste the wine so that we know all about the development of the flavor profile of each individual wine. Now, if we notice that a fermentation is starting to run away, to get too warm, we have the ability to control that fermentation by cooling that wine down and bringing it back under a controllable temperature. Likewise, if the fermentation is starting to slow down and the temperature of the natural fermentation is starting to get too cool, we can either add heat to that fermentation to allow that wine to ferment dry, or if we've noticed in the tasting process that wine actually wants to become something with a little bit more residual sugar, we can accelerate the cooling process and drop that temperature down to a point where the yeast cells are no longer active, stopping the fermentation and capturing the natural residual sugar that the grapes brought in from the vineyard. Now, in the case of the 2018 Riesling feinherb, the ambient temperature here in the cellar actually got so cold that the fermentation started to stop. And we knew from the tasting process that that's really what that wine wanted to become. So we kept an eye on it, let the fermentation come to a natural stop without cooling it down, and preserve the natural sugar that those grapes brought in from the vineyard. Now we can go into the tasting room and see how this wine finished out by tasting the 2018 Riesling feinherb. Welcome to the tasting room for the virtual tasting, and we started out talking about what is feinherb. So, what's feinherb?
For me, it's half dry, a little bit of sweetness, but not overly sweet.
Yeah.
For me, it depends on whose wine it is. I think many of them are half dry, but some of them can actually be a little bit sweet, depending on the brand of wine that I'm drinking.
Yeah, and the same for me. If I don't know that particular producer, I assume that feinherb is something like a halb trocken or a half dry, something with a little bit of residual sugar on there, but not the really sweet wines like an Auslese or a Spätlese.
Right.
But it differs from producer to producer, so you really have to kind of get to know each producer's individual feinherb style. And what we've got here is 16 grams of residual sugar with 7 grams of acid. So it's actually a half dry that we've just chosen to call feinherb. And taking a look at it in the glass, I'm going to go with like a golden straw on this.
Yeah, I think it's a light
Lighter,
yellow,
but not overly light.
Yeah,
it's a pretty color.
Starting to pick up some color around the edges as it gets a little bit of age on it.
Mm-hmm.
And on the nose, you can almost smell the residual sugar. What I get off of this is like orange blossoms and almost like an orange hard candy, like a boiled sweet, rather than the real orange.
A little bit of citrus, but it's not acidic in the nose.
Yeah, more like the citrus blossoms. How about you?
I think there's something maybe apricot or peachy, something like that type of stone fruit on the nose. You also get a little bit of the slate, I think, comes through on the nose.
A little bit of minerality coming through also. Yeah, we hadn't talked about that yet, but there is a little bit of minerality on that. And on the tongue, in the mouth, on the palate, that fruit really carries through, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's got a nice full mouthfeel for me. That sugar really transports the flavor, and it really gives this wine a different feel than the two dry Rieslings that we've tasted up until now.
Yeah, and the acid is not overbearing again. None of our wines have really overbearing acid, but this one is quite nice. It doesn't bother.
Yeah, the sugar kind of balances out the acid that's in there.
Exactly. It's very balanced.
So I could definitely see this wine going with some kind of a heavier chicken dish, maybe with a cream sauce, something like that. That acid would cut through, but that sugar would pick up a lot of nice flavors and really be a complement for something with food. Although I think you could drink this also as an evening kind of sipping wine just on its own.
Yeah, I think definitely in a summertime patio, this is possible to have on a nice evening out.
Yep.
Into the stars.
So that's been the 2018 Riesling feinherb, and that has been the initial tasting series that we have. Thanks very much for your support of this series, and because it's gotten such nice feedback, we will be looking at doing some additional tastings throughout the summer. Maybe not at the same pace, but probably one a month or so. So keep a lookout for those. We will update you on all the social media platforms. And here's a brief look at what we're planning during the summer.